The human eye is also able to see in color for the majority of the people watching this video. Now, again, color blindness is a condition that a small percentage of the population does experience. 10% or approximately of men have red-green color blindness, a smaller percentage of women have that, and then a smaller percentage of both have complete color blindness. So we're going to be talking about the majority, how the eye sees in color when it is functioning properly. So, color and color vision. There are two types of light-sensitive cells in your eye, in the back of your eye. There are rods. Rods are incredibly light-sensitive cells, but they require very little light to trigger, but they contain no color information. So a red photon, a blue photon, a green photon, a yellow photon, whatever, will trigger a rod, and the rod does not know what color photon triggered it. And then you have cones. Cones can detect colors. So there are cones that are sensitive to only specific color ranges. Those detect color, but require a lot of light to function. It takes a lot more light to trigger them. So in the back of the eye, if we look through the eye, and we can see here, the optic nerve will be off to the side. There's an area right behind your main vision, when you stare at something directly, where you have almost all cones. And then you have rods and cones in the area behind that. So the most light-sensitive part of your eye is actually your peripheral vision. And a neat way you can test that is by going outside on a very clear, dark night and look up at the stars. Try to find a star that's very, very, very faint, one you can barely see with your eyes, and then look off to the side and stare and look at that star in your peripheral vision. You'll see not only is the star appear slightly brighter, but you might even see fainter stars around it that you couldn't see when staring directly at it. So the light-sensitive rods are in more of your peripheral vision. The color-sensitive cones are in your main vision, your main field of view. So this explains why, for instance, if you go into a closet at night or in a dark closet and you don't turn on the light, why it's difficult to see what colors your clothes are. But as soon as you turn on the closet light, suddenly all the colors become available. So cones require a lot of light to function. They can detect color. Rods are very light sensitive, but cannot detect color. So we have these two types of cells in the back of our eye. Now, the cones come in three different flavors, if you will. This is called the simplified theory of color vision. We still don't really know how color vision works. It's incredibly complex. Not only do we have the light-sensitive cones in the back of our eye, but also how our brain interprets the signal from these cones is a very complex thing. So in the simplified theory of color vision, it's just that we have three types of cones. We have cones that are sensitive to the blue part of the spectrum. We have cones that are sensitive to the green part of the spectrum. And then cones that are sensitive to like the orangey red part of the spectrum. Again, this is very general understanding. So I erased some of this here, sensitive. So all perceived color, the purples, grab a box of Crayola 64 crayons or go to a paint shop at Lowe's or Home Depot or Menards and see all the possible, Sherwin-Williams, see all the possible paint samples and colors you can possibly have. All of those slightly different hues come about from the combination of these three types of color, these three cones. Now, do the same people see the exact same colors? That's not really well known. But in order to see a color, the light that's shining on it has to contain that color. So for instance, I'm in a room lit up by white lights. Those lights shine down on my shirt here, this peach orangey shirt, we'll call it orange, shine down on this orange shirt. That orange color is being reflected to the camera. The reds, the blues, the greens that are in the white light are being absorbed by the dyes in this shirt. So, if there were no green in the light above us, this shirt would probably still look the same color. If there were no blues in the white light above us, this shirt would still look the same color. If there were no oranges, this shirt could not reflect that orange light back to you. So an example that happened to me once, I had a rental car. I was traveling to go to an observatory. I had a rental car, a red Neon, a Dodge Neon, very bright red. And I drove that to a movie theater that night to watch a movie, parked in a very large parking lot. It was still sunny when I arrived, but when I left, it was dark. And the entire parking lot was lit up by these yellow sodium vapor lamps. So sodium vapor, we'll learn later on this semester, the spectrum contains some yellow light, some sort of orangey colored light, blue and green. There's no red light in a sodium vapor lamp. So when I went out to look at the cars, I'd forgotten where I parked. I'd forgotten what the car looked like since it was a rental. And I did not, this was before the age of being able to press a button and having the car beep at you. I just had a key. So I knew my backpack was on the passenger side, so I just went up and down the aisles trying to find a red car. The problem is there were no red cars. Because the sodium vapor lamp shining down had no red part of the spectrum, no red part of the spectrum could be reflected from the paint. So when I finally stumbled across my car after about a half an hour of searching, I found the backpack in the passenger seat. I unlocked the car with the key, opened it up, the interior lights came on, which were white, and I could see the red paint. Without those interior lights, the car looked gray. So in order for you to see a color, that color has to be in the spectrum that you're looking at. So for example, green leaves. Chlorophyll is in all plants that have leaves have chlorophyll. That's how they absorb sunlight. Chlorophyll absorbs the blue part of the spectrum and absorbs the red part of the spectrum, and it does not do a good job absorbing the green part of the spectrum, which is why green light is reflected off of healthy leaves, and leaves look green. So if you're building in your basement, if you're trying to grow, tomato plants, or you're trying to grow vegetables in a dark location, you do not want to use green lights on your plants to help them grow because the plants cannot absorb that green light. Once the chlorophyll dies out at the end in the fall, then you have these beautiful colors, the leaves turn colors. In reality, the leaves were always really those colors. It's just the chlorophyll is no longer absorbing the red light. You get the beautiful yellows and reds in the fall. So another thing that our human brain is pretty amazing and capable of doing is what's called color constancy. Color constancy just means that we're able to determine the actual color of an object even given different hues, even different amounts of light shining on it. So for example, if you have I think your book uses the example of a white tablecloth, or I can use this white board behind me. If I come and I shine an incandescent bulb on this board, I would say, oh, this board is white. If I shined a fluorescent bulb, like the lights I currently have overhead, I can still see the board is white. If I shine an LED bulb, or if I have Christmas lights, and shine Christmas lights, say blue, green, and red Christmas lights on the board, I would still be able to say, hey, that board is white. Your brain is actually quite good at determining the actual color of an object, even if the entire spectrum isn't present. With the exception of a few cases like the one I just gave you, if the color is completely absent, then you can't reflect that color. So if you have a solid blue object, but you have no blue in the spectrum of the light shining on it, then blue light can't be reflected back, and you wouldn't be able to tell that that object is blue.